my friend from Wyoming, who is a good guy, just said that the motions that we're making, unanimous consent motions, these things could have been brought up earlier. Oh, if only it were true. If only it were true that we could have brought these things up earlier. Because if anybody's been paying attention, they would understand that our friends across the aisle have been blocking everything, including motherhood and apple pie, for the last year. They have voted unanimously to move judicial nominations out of Judiciary Committee, and then they languish, and they will not allow us to bring them up for a vote. And then my friend said that we need to stop the theater. Well, let me tell you what theater is. Theater is when a senator says if we can't get everything resolved and all the spending decisions made by Monday, well, then I just don't think we can do the START treaty. Theater is having 42 senators say, we will not participate unless you do what we want to do today. That's theater. That's theater. Theater is saying, well, you could have brought this up earlier, when everyone knows they've blocked everything we want to bring up. That's theater. What you're seeing on this side right now is a healthy dose of indignation on behalf of the American people that are hurting. And I think back to elections past when great patriots were accused in the most vicious ways of being soft on national security. I remember a senator who lost his limbs in battle, who had advertisements run against him that somehow he was soft on terror because of a twist and distortion of a vote he had cast in the United States Senate. Now, fast forward. We have a treaty that the military unanimously supports, that the secretaries of state for those presidents, those Republican presidents that warned us about loose nuclear weapons and terrorists, their Secretary of States have stood up and said, this is the thing to do. The ranking member of the Foreign Relations Committee in the United States Senate, Senator Lugar, is there anyone more respected on what we should be doing to protect this nation than Senator Dick Lugar? And they are holding this treaty hostage to protect millionaires? Has it come to that? They now are willing to risk national security, the security of this nation, because they refuse to allow us to stop the extra big tax bonuses to millionaires and billionaires. Can you imagine what would have happened to somebody in my party that had the nerve to stand up in this face of our allies, our military, bipartisan support, everyone from Pat Buchanan to Colin Powell, that has said to the American people, this START treaty is necessary, and they're saying, well, if you don't give us a tax break for millionaires by Monday, we're going to go home. Really? It takes your breath away. It just takes your breath away. So I have some unanimous consent motions I will make also today, but I really want that to sink in. Every goalpost they've put up on the START treaty, we have reached, and then they've moved it. We have no verification of nuclear weapons in Russia right now, and we haven't for months. And they're nibbling around the edges because you know what I believe this might be? I might believe this is part of the strategy that was announced by the leader of the Republican Party, that their number one priority is to defeat President Obama, to damage him. They want to deny the passage of this treaty, I believe, it certainly has the appearance anyway, that this is about damaging President Obama. We should be focused on our national security. We should be focused on giving tax cuts to middle America. We should be focused on tax cuts to small businesses. We've done net tax cuts in this country of $300 billion in the last 18 months, and all of those tax cuts were focused like a laser on the middle class and on small businesses. Don't let anybody sell you a bill of goods that the Democratic Party is not fighting for tax cuts for middle America and small businesses. Now, we're not so excited about the millionaires. Those aren't stimulative. They haven't created the jobs. It has been an economic experiment that's failed. Once again, the trickle down didn't trickle. And it's time for us to get busy, make these tax cuts permanent for the middle class, continue to try to reduce our deficit. I see my friends nobody has worked harder, and I've tried to be a partner with him and to reduce spending in the federal government. But this, all of a sudden, we're going to take our football and go home if you don't give us what we want by Monday. And here's the richest part of this. The person who's saying that we're going to go home on Monday if we don't get it by Monday is the person who's negotiating. He's supposed to be negotiating at 5:30. I mean, it's like looking in the mirror and saying, hey, if you don't get it done by Monday, if he wants to get it done by Monday, then be reasonable about the millionaires. Be reasonable about the millionaires. And we can get this done, and we can go home and celebrate Christmas with our families and come back and start hard next year to reduce this deficit with a good down payment. $300 billion going to reduce the deficit because we're not going to give a very small incremental tax increase to people who have plenty of cash right now. But they really need those millionaires. They need the middle class to have some money to spend, to create the demand. That's the economic policy that makes sense in this climate. I yield the floor.